One watching now. See if I can get this in there. It's fun having two monitors and one keyboard.
It's difficult.
People do it.
It's difficult.
So the trick is, hang on, let's go back to Zoom. We're not there. I don't know where we are.
Oh God. Okay, let's not panic. How else can we accomplish this? Oh, it says we're live now. Hold on.
Yes,
We are live.
Carolyn?
Oh God.
Holy
And
crap.
it's delayed. So they heard part of our conversation when I panicked.
So
Actually, I said, don't panic.
don't.
On my phone, it's live. On my computer, it is not.
So, and you're talking about the new, like in the live thing on the channel?
Yep, I got a notification that we're live, and it is. I can see us talking. We are live somewhere.
Yeah, but I can't see our faces. Can you see our faces?
Yes, look,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
but not on desktop.
Oh,
Maybe it takes a few seconds to get to desktop. Okay, on my phone.
hey, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good.
Okay.
Okay, so let me grab that watch URL and
Uh,
tell
Push
everybody.
and push record just in case this doesn't
Good idea.
go through. Well, this was a harrowing experience. I mean,
Gosh,
SEO is easier than going live on YouTube.
no kidding. So I'm gonna put the there we go. Okay. I'm gonna trust that we
Just
begin.
trust that we're open.
All right.
Okay, it shows us live on your channel. I don't know if I had to click out of the thumbnail, but I see us in two different areas. All right,
I think we're there.
we're good.
So I'm just gonna make sure I have the thing open here so I can see any kind of comments on that.
I feel like we just
Okay.
ran a marathon trying to go live.
I'm telling you. Oh, it says my volume is low.
Connect.
You're at a good volume.
Okay, I'm gonna stay the same then.
So can everybody just, I see some people are in the live chat. Can you just like say if you can hear us well?
And can you see us?
And can you see us? And I guess there's going to be a delay, so we have to like really. All right. We are recording. I apologize. If anybody is at the other location, I have left the link to here. So if we're just gonna move forward. So,
Where can I grab the link from real quick?
Let me put it.
Oh, hold on. Let me grab it from my phone. All right, I've got people trying to get in. All right. All right, moving everyone around. All right, we got it.
Okay. All right. So let me just go over there. So I'm on the right one. Welcome, everybody. We're going to do a quick crawl or no crawl report and then go right into my conversation with Marie Ysais, who's right here with me and holding my hand through all this technological nightmare. All right, so I'm going to want to show my screen. So hang on just a second while I do that. To help myself. So many settings, so little time.
Mhm.
So I just need to be able to share my screen on the other computer. And Marie, while I'm in here, I'm going to make sure that are also already set. Share. So you should now also be at home. All right. All right. So pretty much what we've been seeing is obviously you can see the Google continues to say we're in a core update and we have some information about that. And the new content was found this morning, expecting a search console page update later tonight if they're on time. And how I'm experiencing that is that as I publish new content, my practice has been to publish it and then resubmit the sitemap. And then Google would immediately crawl that and update that in Search Console. And then when I would suggest give the URL for it to be indexed, Google would say it had discovered it, but it had not crawled it yet. And then I would request indexation. Right now, what's happening is that the sitemaps are not being immediately digested. So there's a little bit of delay in the reporting, I believe, to the Search Console, not a delay in the arrival of bots. So now I just want to basically show you what I was talking about. If you saw the or heard the confessions of an SEO podcast this morning, I said the update is over and it ended last week. So I want to show you why I said that. And I've shared this with Marie. She's being very patient and waiting for me to do it here. What we know is that Google is a testing operation. They test all the time. And so prior to the announcement of the update, there was a new mobile bot, a new Chrome build to their mobile crawler agent. And then they announced it on the 15th. And as you can see on the 16th, the weather tools went 8. And then on this day, on the 17th, late in the day, they introduced a new Chrome build of the desktop bot of what they introduced over here. So to me, what usually happens with updates is that there's a new bot that shows up, there's an announcement that comes out, and usually a short number of days later, they do something that indicates to me that they're introducing something new. And that's kind of like the worst thing you can do when you're testing is introduce a new factor. So assuming that they are the testing monster that we believe and know that they say they are, that's my basis for saying the update is over. However, in the conversations with Marie, she has some interesting data in terms of like, why does Google say, and I'll go over here to the updated search status dashboard. Why does Google announce an update and then they come back in and they say how long it lasts? They give us a date. So right now they haven't called it on the current update. So even though I have, and I've done this before, they wait a period of time. And we've got a new word for that now. We're going to call it the nebulous zone.
Yes.
Trickies out there. And what's really interesting is once we started comparing our data, I mean, Marie came up with dates and specific times and patterns. So you understand why it caught my attention and why we kind of got all excited, because we believe that we've come up with an explanation about why they have this period of time afterward and why it doesn't impact 100% of us the way when they immediately roll it out, we all see the high weather tools, but then afterwards, what's going on? So, Maria, I'm going to stop
Your share.
sharing
Okay.
this. And do you want to maybe talk about, I've known you for so long, and I didn't know how you got into what you do, which is the site recovery.
Yes, so I actually, I think in the beginning started with local SEO and all kinds of other SEO stuff, but a couple of years ago, I had a client, a big client, come in, and he buys and sells, flips websites all the time. And so what he does is buys a new book of, 5 to 10 sites, brings them all into my agency, and then we work on them, and then he flips them and gets them back out. And with this particular client, he came in, had a new book. I think we onboarded the site, started looking at everything, and then everything got hit with one of the updates. And I can't remember the exact update. I just remember it was like April 2 years ago, and it was very dramatic. It was a very bad day, and the client, we had a lot of sites go down. Now, I hadn't touched the sites. I had only started gathering baseline information on the sites, and I was shocked when they all went down. But when they did all go down, we learned that one, it had all the same, I think, developer, and they were using a lot of the same templates across the sites. And so when they all went down all at the same time, it was very stressful period, but it was also a really good learning period. And I really just wanted to dig the client back out. It was my end goal. But when I started looking at it and realizing what some of the triggers were, I became obsessed with that type of work because it's like a puzzle. So, the ship was tanked. What do we have to adjust to bring it back? And it almost becomes addicting, like the rest of our SEO careers. And I just became just completely fascinated by it. And that's how initially I got started with trying to turn sites around.
It's interesting because we talk about our SEO, but really we're talking about people, right? People who
Yes.
have
Yes.
businesses, they're online. This is their
Bread and butter.
bread and butter, right? Literally.
Yes, it is how they put food on the table. And I'm pretty sociable, so a lot of my clients and I are pretty close. I know their family, I know their, what they do, the ins and the outs. We chit chat a lot. And so it was a pretty big impact when someone that I know, and it's a client and we've worked together for a while, when they get hit, it became a passion to help them. And I was really just looking to help them in the moment or at that time. And I was really just kind of focused more on the clients, which I tend to do a lot. But then once I got into it, I realized it was really good for SEO and to try and figure it out and put the puzzle pieces together. And then you start developing patterns and figuring out triggers. And then it just becomes, now I'm just obsessed with trying to figure it out. Each update I like when they roll them out, because I'm like, here's a new learning experience that we get. A lot of people, freak out and hate them, but I actually like them because we're able to learn a lot. What's triggering them? What do we need to do to turn the sites around? And sometimes it's really hard and it takes a long time to get the data in to even figure it out. So it's a really cool experience, I think.
I'm so glad that you do this because we've been talking lately, and this is what conversation led into the one last week where you were showing me particular site after after the core update runs, in that period of time between after it runs and when Google says we're done.
Yes, what's happening in that time?
Finding drop in impressions, increase in clicks.
Yes, yeah.
Tanking in terms of where it was ranking. So these things all didn't make sense. And then when you shared with me, and it all happened at 2 p.m.
Right.
time,
Right.
that made me go this is not that doesn't sound like something that's accidental.
Random, right? Yeah. So I happened to have a client that mentioned, and I didn't even know at the time that, hey, it's happening at 2 p.m. and it happened at 2 p.m. last time. And I thought it just stuck out in my mind that it just sounded too weird that he went through, 2 core updates and he recognized the 2 p.m. timestamp. And so I thought that was weird and it kept playing in my head. And that's when I called you to say, hey, it just feels weird to me. What do you make out of it? And then as you and I talked a couple of days later, I figured out that there was another site that was hit at 2 p.m. Central Standard on the same day. And the reason why that we're understanding that when they were hit is because there's tools on the site and there's tools that alert you when you have a deviation in traffic or a certain drop in traffic to alert you, hey, at this time, we're seeing 20% less traffic. And because the clients had already gone through it, they understood what this meant. And it was right on the day of the core, I think, or around the core announcement. And they're like, here we go again, same pattern. And what stuck out in my mind was the 2 p.m. Central, and now it was across a couple of sites. I still have more sites to dig through. I have way too many sites to dig through to get all of and some of it we didn't capture the 2 p.m. It was only a few of the clients we were able to capture it. But now that we've seen it through a few of the sites, I'm curious to track all of the sites now to see if we can hit the 2 p.m. Central Standard time period on the same day.
And it was not only, it was kind of like a very 20% drop.
Mm-hmm.
Day 1 of the announcement.
Mm-hmm.
And then on day 2, there was another 20% drop.
Yeah.
Suddenly traffic is like dropping.
Yes.
And impressions is dropping. And then it would stabilize for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would either do one of two things.
One of two things. Yep. Yeah, and I'll show you in my images here when I share my screen. That's what I was tracking and plotting and looking at to show you the period in between that you and I kind of discovered talking about it and going back and forth. And I think it's really important to get the timing down and to understand it so that everyone knows what to do with their sites, when to do it, and why we ask them to wait if we're asking them to wait, and just give everyone a little bit more knowledge about it.
Yeah, this would be great because I think the first response, when something changes, everybody wants to fix it.
Yes, right away.
So I think this would be a great time if you want to go into.
Yep, let me share my screen and
hoping it lets you
find all the proper buttons. All right, can you see my screen?
I can definitely.
Okay.
And I'll check over here and see if everybody else
can. Okay. We're good. Okay, so what I did was just grab data from sites. I happen to have a lot of sites that are being hit or were hit because I work on site recovery. So a lot of the sites that I'm tracking have all been hit or getting hit repeatedly, or there's something wrong going on with the sites. So what I did was just grab the graphs that I thought were the most interesting. I actually have more to drag through, and this was just kind of the average of what I was seeing. So this particular one was the core update May, and what I did was notate the dates that the site had turbulence. So it was May 31st that we noticed the first drop, and it lasted through July 1st. And on this particular site, no changes were made. And they had 32 days before they returned to pre-core traffic. So we had the pre-core update traffic. And then it took us 2 days to get to that bottom level of squiggly lines that you see, the blue and the purple. Then once we were down there, we held that pattern, and then we had 2 days that we climbed out and returned to typical traffic, typical impressions. It completely just went back to pre-core impressions and traffic. But we had 32 days in between before we actually returned.
So like when you started showing me these patterns, it kind of looks like a paper bag with wings.
Yes, it does. It does. And we noticed the first drop on, like I said, May 31st. And then we noticed by July 1st, we were climbing out and becoming okay again. And again, no changes were made to the site, and they continued to do well. There was nothing out of the ordinary that happened after this.
Got it. And so, yeah, there we go.
Yes. So I've got another one that also was affected on May 31st. Again, these are my dates that the site had a drop in traffic. These are not the Google announcement dates. So we saw a change in traffic by 20%. And most of the sites, the first day, the 20% is steady throughout the sites, by the way. So on the first day, on May 31st, we had a reduction. And again, this was a 2-day stair step down to the depths of, I don't know what we want to call that, but that's bad, not good. Some minor changes were made to this particular site, and they had 27 days before they returned to pre-core traffic. Now, the red arrow is when Google indicated that the update was done. It was finished and that everything was good to go. That's where they indicated that they were done. And then you can see how much longer the site had issues or lower traffic and impressions than usual. And then we climb again for 2 days. And then we have, actually on this particular site, it was higher than the traffic and impressions before they got hit.
Now, before we go further, I think that point, where Google announced that they were done.
Yes.
There clearly seems to be time after
Of
announcement.
Changes or updates or something still going on. So the update is announced that it's done rolling out, but there's still something calculating in the background. We're still seeing some type of turbulence or some type of suppression of the site. Yeah. And this one again lasted for 27 days. This one is also the 2022 core update, but I wanted to show you what it looks like after you come out of the, what did you call it, nebulous period?
Yes, the nebulous zone.
After we come out of the nebulous zone, this is what it looks like when you know you're actually in trouble. So the first 2 images that I showed you, those sites kind of returned or did better. They had kind of a steady appearance in the chart. But this one, again, May 31st is the day that it all goes down. And this one lasted from May 31st to June 30th. And what I was counting was the nebulous period here in between. So, and then I have a blue square. This is what happens after the nebulous period, and you're in trouble. So you can see
is that if you look at it, it almost looks like that's like if you picture a knife on its back, and then it looks like a knife.
Yes. And you can see it kind of just continues to stair step down. So we stair step down again, and then you can see after several weeks, we stair step down again. And then you can kind of follow the graph to see we're just going to flatline. We're just like the heart has stopped beating here. And this is what it looks like when you are truly in trouble. And I'm not saying you have to wait 5 months. I'm just saying this is what it looks like. If you are hit with the core update, you do not make any changes and you're out of the nebulous period. This is what happens. You will eventually flatline. And this, by the way, was 31 days of the nebulous period until we stair stepped into the flatlining.
So, and you have something, sorry.
Yep.
Went ahead.
All right, so this one is another one of May 31st. And we had 29 days of the nebulous period before we flatlined. And this one flatlined a little bit faster than the last image. We didn't kind of stair step down. It just kind of like the next day said, I'm going to flatline today. And this is what happens when you don't make any changes to your site and you are truly hit with the update. This is what you will continue to see.
What other good news do you have for people?
All right, and then this is what I'm currently tracking the current core update. So this is for 2023, the one we're going through and we're talking about right now. And I just kind of grabbed, so in this particular, for this particular core update, we are on day 10, but I was able to gather 8 days of clicks and impressions. And I just wanted to point out, so on March 15th is when the site went into the nebulous period, as we're calling it. And we had 2,181 clicks through the site and 113,000 impressions. By March 22nd, we are at 984 clicks to the site and 56,000 impressions. So you can see the impressions are almost in half. The clicks went from 2,000 to 900. And then again, this is the nebulous period that we're talking about. We truly don't know if the site is going to come out of it or flatline like the other 2 images I showed you. So when we're talking about core updates and we're looking at this period in between, a lot of times my advice is not to touch the site. And that becomes very confusing for people because once they see a reduction in traffic, they want to do 20, 30, 40 things to the site right that day. Like the day they have a 20% drop in traffic is the day they want to do like 20 things they read online to do. But the nebulous period is not when you want to start adjusting the site because like some of the other images I showed you, this site had no changes made. So if you're making changes in the nebulous period, what if you make the wrong changes and you're not going to come out of it? You're not truly hit at this point. We're calling it the nebulous period, right? What if you make 20 or 50 changes within that period and your site goes down, but you didn't know after 32 days it was actually going to go up?
And it was like, we see this anecdotally, right? That not everybody complains about.
No, so it's right. We are not all hit 100% across the board, which is part of the fun.
Right.
And also sites that maybe your site was hit. Your site may look exactly, or may look exactly like someone's site that was hit, but your site wasn't hit. And then people become very confused, right? Yeah. So they'll say, no, it can't be that because they are doing fine and they have all of that. So it's very easy to get confused and disoriented during updates.
So, when you were sharing all this with me and like a couple of questions came to mind. Like, first off, why isn't everybody impacted the same way? Okay, that's a fair question. Why does it have this weird option where either you're gonna go through it, either you're gonna shoot right back up or higher, or you're gonna flatline.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like what possibly could explain that, and it may be a different thing. We'll probably talk about that a little bit. And so I think when you were first showing me this, the thing that came to mind, and this happens sometimes when you run horror report and you get like really weird data and you run it again and everything's fine. And I, in talking with Ted about this, as far as Quora, he's like, well, maybe it's shifting data centers, right? Mm-hmm. So that's something may have changed on their end, which is why we get all these weird readings that make no sense. Mm-hmm. And so it got me to thinking that, one thing that could possibly explain why it isn't everybody is that there probably are sites that go through, or maybe some of their pages, how do
Some
we
of
know
their,
Google stores all their stuff, right?
right.
But maybe this is a time period where after they run the core of their update, and we often say like they're cleaning up, in the time after.
Yeah, we call it corrections or cleaning up or,
Right.
yeah,
So if they've really screwed the pooch, they want to be able to see it. And it's probably easier to see it, not in the entire possibility of the largest data set in the world, which one could say is everything Google has, but maybe isolating. And maybe the way to do it is to isolate it by a data center. And so these, there might be some ability on their part. Again, we are not getting notices from Google that says this is what's happening, right? We're
no,
looking at what could possibly explain what we're seeing. And why it's not every site could be, well, not every site is going through that data center.
yep,
And we don't know what site, we don't know our data center, right?
yeah,
So we're sort of seeing something happen and coming up with possible explanations. So let's say they know that the core update, they know they're going to run it.
mhm,
So it's kind of like you said, the first day of the announcement, typically it drops 20% if it's going to
Mhm.
drop.
If it's going to drop, right?
Happen this way, it's going to step down.
Mm-hmm,
So we have a 2 p.m. start date,
mm-hmm,
start time. We have an update announcement
mm-hmm,
in very near to this, and then we have a 20% drop, and then another 20% drop.
mm-hmm. Yep,
And so, like you figure that down in that nebula zone, that could be where they're double checking, making sure that they didn't screw the pooch with this update.
right, yeah, some kind of checks and balances or something. There's some type of calculations or something still going on. Because you have sites that will come out of it, sites that won't come out of it, sites that will, there are sites that go through the nebula zone and then come out fine every single time. And I don't know why they're slated to do that. We can only theorize.
Maybe they have to see something they know that's going to be okay and compare it and go like, is this site hit because it's not, like is there something in
Right,
the site that
right.
would take it down? And one of the things that we talked about, now I did talk about this in the podcast this morning,
Mhm,
in terms of, one way to explain this is an algorithm that we don't often talk about because we don't get a lot of information about it. This may be how it looks
mhm,
in terms of, it's called MC4, and it's a algorithm that is like, if you exploit a minority of factors in your optimization to communicate to Google,
mhm.
then if you use fewer things to do so, then you will you will lose the benefit of those things. So that maybe you did them and you flew really high,
Mhm.
but when that algorithm was run, then all those few things that you used were taken away, and it's as though you never had it. You never did it.
Right, so it's suppressing the site.
Right, right. There's no, and it's only because
Taking
you
away
have that page
benefits.
on your site, right?
Yeah,
It's not everybody's.
yeah,
So maybe they have to have sites they know that are going to come out, sites that they know probably not, and then sort of compare and contrast. I mean, we don't know what exactly they do, but we've had this conversation going about over optimization,
mhm,
you and I, and it's been really interesting to have an opportunity to look at some of the data of your pages.
mhm.
And I'm not going to show anybody that.
No.
But the interesting piece is, and I know that you describe it often as more de-optimization.
Yes, yep, I do.
But we've had the conversation, but maybe it was overuse of certain factors, exploiting fewer factors.
Yes, which you're
And
de-optimizing to then remove or reduce. So
right,
in my mind, I'm taking away from an overuse.
yes. And I do think that's true. And what was really great in having the opportunity to run a core report and do a compare
Mhm.
for
Comparison. Mhm.
yeah, that what we saw was actually many things that increased and that were things that would impact
Yes, yep.
diversity and the factors even. And so the cool thing is I know you describe it as taking away, but the math actually says you
I
add
am adding
each.
to it, right? Which is really interesting. And I'm actually looking forward to continuing to study it to, pull more data so that we can talk more openly about it once we know exactly what we're dealing with. But you're right. My initial explanation has been I'm taking away from, but the data is showing that it's actually redispersing in a different way. And I'm actually adding and not only taking away from when you look at the math behind it, which is interesting. And it gives me more words to use to describe the work. So when I first went to you and asked, hey, help me figure this out, because I knew what I was doing, how to do it, systemized how to do it, have saved sites, turned sites around, but I didn't understand how maybe Google saw it or how was it actually helping the site. And again, my explanation was I'm de-optimizing, but the math actually showed us there's a lot more to it than just de-optimizing. Although I am truly de-optimizing, I'm dispersing other factors throughout. So it's almost like I think you said yesterday, it's almost like we're reorganizing the factors, and we're putting a little bit more emphasis on this factor and pushing it through to many more factors than the narrow amount that originally was there.
The page that you showed me was quite impressive in terms of it was completely out before you did your thing. And then when you did
Yes,
your thing, it
yeah,
brought up to number one.
yeah. And by completely out, she means it was out of the top 100. It was just out of the top 100. And then once we adjusted it, it went to first position and stuck. So it's interesting. I can't wait to do it, repeat the process over and over so we can kind of get the full picture of what's happening. But it's really interesting to actually get the numbers behind it and then maybe more accurately describe what I'm actually doing.
Yes. Well, and talk about this in terms of a diagnostic. If people are looking, what was that? Was it a plugin that people were using to identify the time?
Yeah, well, it's tools. So you've got keyword tracking tools, traffic tracking tools, all this. And what happens is you can set up, limits when you drop a certain percentage or whenever it deviates from your current impressions and traffic, it will let you know, hey, there's something going on at this moment. And it can let you know that, hey, you've got 50% more traffic than normal on this day or during this week. So it's kind of comparing week to week, day to day, and it shows you abnormalities as they hit. And the first time it noticed it just happens to be at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on multiple sites, not just one site. It was originally brought to my attention on one site, but as we start, and I didn't know to check for timing or anything like that. I just thought it was random and random days. But the more I dig through it, it wasn't as random as we thought. A lot of the days stayed the same or true through most of the sites. And then the timing started staying true about a 2 p.m., which is what drew my attention to this is really weird. And I better call Carolyn, because to me, it just stuck out as odd, and it just wasn't as random as I originally thought before I started realizing the dates and the times.
Right. So the date and the time can be as part of the diagnostic.
Yes.
In Search Console.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, and you're looking for, maybe you're looking for a 20% dip in traffic on the first day. And this doesn't hold true. I've seen sites that dip on certain days and they have certain patterns, and maybe they will dip for a day or two. Something's a little turbulent and then it flows back out. So what you're going to see is a continued, like the charts that I showed, 27 days, 30 days, 32 days, you're going to see a continued pattern of it being down day after day. And that's when your attention will, and then connect it to, did Google make any announcements? Are we going through a core update? What are we going through currently? And you can start connecting the dots. Now, when we notice the traffic differences on the sites, it's always 2, 3, 4 days within an announcement. It's never the day of. It might be 2, 3, 4 days different. They might announce and then you won't notice it for 4 days or 2 days or 1 day. It's very, it just depends. So what I'm looking for is, has your traffic dropped? If it has dropped, by how much? And what day did you notice the drop? And that's how we start trying to determine. And then you can even correlate it with Google's announcements.
One question came in
Mhm.
from Honey. It's could the 2 p.m. time be the default check time of the tools?
It could, and if 2 p.m. might be a default check time, and we've looked at that too. And it usually fills in hour by hour, and that's just the 2 p.m. that they noticed the dip. I've thought about that. In fact, this morning I was like, it could be 1 a.m., it could be 1:30, depending on when the tool is pulling the data. But I haven't had enough time yet to go back to the tool and read it to see exactly the time steps of when it's pulling. But because it's happening on multiple sites at the 2 p.m., it's right around the same time. If it's 1:32, something is happening collectively across the sites.
Got it. Because they're not all set up maybe with the same
Right.
settings, then to let us know.
Right. It's different settings, different sites, different people, different, everything is different about it. So there's something about it. I haven't had enough time to dig into really kind of nail down the tool timing, and there's something coordinated on it.
You say it just can't be accidental or coincidence.
Right.
And so it explains why not everybody gets it.
Mhm.
Experiences this
or they may even experience it at different times. You may see a site go down and your site doesn't go down for another week, and you think, oh, I beat it, I made it, nothing happened. And then in 4 or 5 days, then your site goes down. It's really, we're just kind of rolling through, like you said, data centers and the timing. But I have seen it where we're usually within that 4-day time period. So when they have the announcement, the sites are hitting somewhere within that 4 days of, we see the initial loss of traffic.
I just remember too, they delay a lot of it's not necessarily real-time data in Search Console. It's delayed by 2 days.
2 days. Yep.
So that, there's certain time
Yes.
situations that repeat. And Lee was saying, could be Google's engineering rollout calendar, which.
Yes, which I think is highly likely. If I had to guess, that's probably where I would put my money.
We need to figure out when 2 p.m. Central is somebody's beginning of the day.
Yeah. And we thought about that too, right? We thought about it, how it's rolling through, where it's rolling. And I think Lee is in line with my thinking. I thought that was a really good explanation of it. And it eased my mind when you and I were discussing it, and that was one of our conclusions, our hypothesis. And I was like, it feels like that could be something like that.
Yeah. So, well, if everybody, if you have any questions or anything, keep posting them. Real quick, I want to make sure if anyone is interested in Marie's services to recover their site, Marie, what's the best way people to reach you or to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can reach me. I have a website, Ysais SEO. You can, if you happen to be on Facebook, I'm on Facebook a lot. I have a SEO Facebook group over there. So a lot of times people will message me on Facebook, or they will fill out the contact form on my site, and just give me a little bit of a background of what you see going on. And then we, can talk about it and see if you even need my services, because sometimes you don't.
And what's the name of the Facebook group? I know you just.
Yeah, so the Facebook group is SEO Algo Secrets. We have just over, I think, 6,000 members. I post updates in there. A lot of my findings I put in there. I chit chat a lot with the group. I really like to stay connected with everyone that way. And if you have questions, you're welcome to join the group and even ask them within the group. I'm pretty active over there.
Yes, you are. So, and that also leads into why we talk often is that, I do have that training in forensic SEO.
Yes.
That I teach a couple of times a year. So I'm going to certainly add your diagnostic to my list of possibilities on that. That's super cool. And then I guess also just if anybody likes this kind of information, this is the first time for Crawl or No Crawl that we've had a sort of extended live kind of break things down thing. But normally they're daily, and they're like 5 minutes, 6 minutes occasionally. And I share the indexation research for new content. And currently it's now for the sites that are mentioned, are designated in Search Console as desktop crawler primary sites. So, so Marie, keep at it. I love your digging down and things up, and really appreciate it. And I know this will help people because obviously this is a business, right? These people are running businesses through their websites.
Yeah.
So if you can't manage that long period where you're out, you just have to know that if this is something where your site goes through regularly, you're going to have to plan and diversify, right?
Yeah, we're seeing some sites go through it regularly, some sites that don't, and some sites that can go through it like clockwork. And you and I were talking about, this is the time, we really need to start thinking about diversification, where the money from the site is coming from, diversifying across platforms, because if one platform is having problems or having rollouts or whatever they're doing, you can rely on the other platforms while you're trying to fix, if something needs to be fixed, what's going on with the other platform. And I think it's a smart business move to diversify across platforms and not rely on one platform for all of your bread and butter, which I know is something we did in the beginning was, everyone relied only on Google and kind of ran with it. But I'm seeing that we have more turbulent times than we had in the past. Those were the good old days. And now we're seeing these nebulous periods. And there's not much we can do about it, but we can diversify and focus and save your money for these 30 days if you have to.
Yeah, plan ahead, right? Knowledge is power.
Yeah, knowledge is power, which is exactly why we wanted to talk about it openly, what you can and can't expect, what I'm looking for when I take on a site. I'm looking to see if we're past the nebulous period, and that's the period where I'm asking you not to touch your site. Sometimes clients come in and I'm like, have you changed your site at all an X amount of time? And then if they hand me a document of like 50 pages of 100 changes, it just makes my job longer and harder. And it's better for you if you do not touch your site during this period that we're talking about.
Yeah, wisdom. Hard, simple and yet hard to do. Hard to stay away from.
It is hard to do because as soon as you see the drop, you want to change a million things, right? You want to do it fast so that 2 days later you're back up. But the hard truth of this is, if you're truly hit, it's going to take you 3 to 4 months to climb out if you have a large site. And it depends on how many edits need to happen to bring your site back up to protocol, right? So that you can fly out of it. This is not a fast recovery. This isn't like pushing a red button or an easy button and getting done in 2 days. When you're making, changes across 500, 600 pieces of content, you're then relying on Google crawling it and seeing it and going through, which is why I talk to you a lot about, the indexation and what's happening and the phases. And when you boil all of that down, you're looking at 3 to 4 months before you return to your previous traffic and impressions. Unfortunately.
Now, I'm going to tell on you because I know you're working on, there's only so much of you.
Right.
You're working on a product that,
Yes.
would share what it is that you're doing, and that would be available. So if someone came to you and you couldn't take them on as a client because you had so many already on your plate, that if they were so inclined in terms of ability and, budget wise,
Yes.
that might
Yes.
be an option. And you're working on that now, right?
Yeah. So you've actually jumped ahead, and I have not announced this anywhere I have not told my own group or anything, but I am working on something so that if I cannot take you on it as a client, you're able to identify which update hit your site, if you're in or out of the nebulous period, and then what changes you need to begin to make to recover your own site. This will help you if you have your own team, or maybe you personally want to work on your own site. Maybe I'm booked. It just helps me help more sites without me having to physically touch every single one. And it's something that people like or want the ability. If they don't want to work directly with me, they can actually just follow through the steps, identify the triggers, reverse them, and then recover your own site.
Bravo. I mean, in a way, I'm sorry that first client lost 10 sites all at one time, but
Right.
a lot of good came out of it. And
It did. It really did.
yeah, I just love being able to share all this with you and appreciate your willingness to come in and share your pictures.
Right. Well, thank you for forcing me to do this. I'm usually a little more quiet, but Carolyn's like, we have to show everyone. So we're still actually gathering data. We're still working through the process. There's still a lot that Carolyn and I have to talk about and continue to process, but maybe we'll give more updates as we develop or have anything else super cool like what came up here to talk about.
Perfect. Marie, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's great. And thanks everybody for coming. Sorry about the technical issues in the beginning, but the video will be up for replay, and I'll make sure you have links to like Marie's group and her website and all the other things that we talked about in case of, you didn't write it down.
I know, right?
And if you're looking for Cora, getting it at a better price right now,
Mhm.
I'll also put in a link in there so that you can get it for a little bit less. All right.
Yes.
Thank everybody.
All right.
Thank you so much for coming.